Wendy Gonzalez, welcome to Listening with Leaders. You are the CEO of Sama, which can be found at sama.com. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate being here, Doug.
Absolutely. Well, so let's start off with a little bit of a backstory. Tell us about yourself.
Sure. Well, I would say I'm a mom, a wife, a cook, a skier, a snowboarder. There's a lot of things that I would describe myself as, probably, right, even a head of a CEO. But yeah, I grew up in the Seattle, Washington area, so I'm the child of immigrants. My father came to the U.S., one of the first kind of international engineers for Boeing. I went to school in the U.S. I went to school in the area, to the University of Washington. So if anybody is listening or watching football right now, our team is doing amazingly well. So I don't want to jinx it, but I'm hopeful we'll be in the national championship. But after that, I joined a consulting firm. So I joined Ernst & Young, and I spent 10 years there through the acquisition or the merger with Capgemini. And after about a decade in consulting, I wanted to get closer to making impact, right? I wanted to be able to feel like I could sort of affect change, not just consult my clients on it. So I left to the enterprise. So I worked for a couple of public companies in different IT leadership roles. Then got the startup bug. So I kind of kept getting smaller and smaller. And I was like, well, I think I'll just co-found a company. So I did that with a close colleague and actually former client of mine. So we built an IoT SaaS startup, and then I transitioned over to Sama about 8 years ago.
Tell us about Sama.
So Sama's a really unique company. So we are a social enterprise. And we're a certified B Corp. So that means that we have purpose and profit. That's part of our business. And yeah, it's interesting you ask, Doug, because how I came about, and I told a very long-winded introduction, but it's kind of what found me here at Sama. So, child of immigrants, my husband's a zero-generation immigrant. We both kind of really felt incredibly lucky to sort of be where we were at, right? The opportunities that work had created for us and our families has been amazing. He's a sales executive. And we ended up living in the Bay Area. We raised 3 kids and beautiful Los Gatos. And it's like, okay, this is like a bubble. 9 out of 10 cars are like Teslas.
Right.
It's just not like the way the rest of the real world is, and certainly not at all like how we grew up, which was with a lot of hard work and, quite frankly, some luck, and some people also mentoring and looking out for us, that we were even able to get into the positions that we're in. So as I was in the throes of my startup, where it was just so intense, so many hours a week, and we just crossed this threshold of 10 million ARR, right, where we actually had real revenues. I was like, what are we doing? What am I doing this for? To create this cool software that's just going to make these companies more efficient. And I kind of had a little bit of a, what can we do to show our children, that they need to be part of the community and kind of be citizens of the world. And because we were doing volunteering on the weekends, and then I just kind of had this epiphany where it's like, we put so much time and energy into work. Is there a way that we can combine the two? So that was kind of the discussion I'd had with my husband. We had 3 young children, and then actually my father passed away unexpectedly. So it happened, suddenly. And at that point in time, I was like, what am I waiting for? Why would I not, start to do something that I think is more meaningful? So yeah, so I left that startup and I joined a nonprofit. So Sama is a nonprofit at the time. And I joined it because I felt like it really encompassed all of the values that I held and that we've been trying to teach our kids as a family, which is really that you got to level the playing field. If you want to see, action in the world, then you need to take the purposeful steps to affect that change, which for Sama is the purposeful hiring of women and youth in underserved communities so they can sustainably move themselves out of poverty by creating jobs and experience in the digital economy. So yeah, I did a whole kind of I wouldn't exactly say it's a 180, because a lot of my experience in technology and consulting kind of was the exact experience that was needed to run this business. But Yeah, it was kind of a bit of an epiphany where I could combine um passion for social change and poverty alleviation with technical skills and leadership. So
Interesting.
yeah,
I have a similar path. I left the practice of law after 22 years to pick and got my master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies and became a peacemaker. And then in 2010, with my colleague Laurel Coffer, we founded Prison of Peace. And we've been working in prisons all over California, training lifers and long-term inmates how to be peacemakers and mediators to stop prison violence.
that's amazing.
Same
I
thing.
love it.
Well,
I love it. That's
it,
so great.
that's the, I mean, that's something that I think a lot of people miss. I think a lot of people chase the dollars and they wonder why they don't have any meaning in their life
Well,
when they're
that
not
was,
serving others.
I think, I think that's, yeah. Well, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Doug, but yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. It was kind of like we were sitting there going, wow, we're really working hard for this, and then it didn't feel as meaningful. And when you start to sort of integrate, well, what are the things you're trying to do for your family? And for me, it was all about, okay, well, how do I kind of show our kids that when you leave a place better than you found it. How do you sort of demonstrate those different values? And it was like, well, okay, wait a second. Here's this company that believes that talent is distributed equally, but opportunity is not. And so Sama means equal in Sanskrit. And that's
Huh.
what we do is we level the playing field by purposely hiring, not on the basis of job experience and on your college degree, but the whole idea is that people in underserved communities have the greatest barriers to employment, just kind of like recidivism, right?
Right.
So it's really difficult, and it's like you have this perpetuating cycle. What happens if you're just this really smart, kid, young person, right? You happen to not have won the birth lottery of growing up in Los Gatos, California, but are in a slum, and you're great. You have so much talent and capacity, but you simply lack the opportunity to do that because you can't afford to go to college. You don't have the network, and it's really difficult to get a job if you have no experience and no degree. And so it was this idea of providing digital upskilling, and it really conveyed to that point how the sort of values that we really wanted to see in our community and act upon could be done, in a global fashion, and to basically be able to also kind of show our kids that, like, hey, when we say these things, we walk the walk, which is acting on this. So yeah, that was a big reason why. Well, that is the primary reason why I joined. And yeah, it's been a really fun run. Social enterprise is really different than regular business, but yeah, it's been an amazing ride so far.
Tell us a little bit more about Sama. You're hiring at-risk youth and people from disadvantaged backgrounds, and what exactly are you doing with them?
So we are an AI data company. So our goal and how we really got started was we want to, if jobs are scarce in many parts of the world, so a lot of our work is in Kenya and Uganda, and getting a job is difficult, right? Because there's a scarcity of them. But through the digital economy, right, jobs that are going to be from other parts of the world, people can actually gain employment. And the digital economy is where a huge amount of jobs is going to be created in the future. So it was really around this idea that how can we provide skills for the jobs of the future, and then provide the go beyond training and actually have full-time employment benefits, et cetera, because not only can you put dollars in people's pockets when you pay at a living wage, it allows people to move into safe housing, have medical insurance, of vacation days, sick leave, and all those other things that provide security for people to develop skills, but they get the job experience. So that way, the ability to then go and get another job, right? So we're a bridge employer, and another job is much easier when you actually have that experience. So that has been our thesis, and that's we are certified B Corp. We do a copious amount of data collection, and that's what we've seen is that through getting not just employment, you're not only getting income in your pocket, you're actually getting the skills necessary to either go back to have enough money to go back to school or to go to a higher paying job. And
So you're working with young people in Africa.
mhm.
other places or just Africa?
Africa, we did in our past, we'd run programs in the US
Mhm.
as well in different areas that had economic challenges. That was more focused on um kind of the gig economy, because it was that's what we focused our US programs on. In East Africa, it's all around full-time employment in the formal economy. So there is roughly in sub-Saharan Africa, it's pretty staggering numbers, but 86% of the working population works in the informal economy in sub-Saharan Africa. That's 7 out of 8 people.
Right.
Informal economy is doing day labor, at a construction site. It's like making snacks and selling them. It's selling secondhand clothes, at a local, kind of flea market, as an example. And the challenge there is that, one is average income is less than $2 a day, which is below the World Bank, World Bank stand for poverty. But beyond that, you don't work, you get sick, you're not earning any income that day. And the ability to then parlay that into a career is pretty difficult. So that was our concept, was formal employment. So you go into the office, you're doing digital work, you're building technology skills. You may stay in technology, you may go and do something else, but you are building all of these skills that are not just technical skills, but also soft skills, right? Professionalism, coming to the office, communication, conflict resolution, things of that nature.
And so you've got you're based in you got an office in Uganda?
2 offices in Uganda, 2 offices in Kenya. We also have offices in Montreal. I'm based here in the Bay Area. We're virtual in the Bay Area, but we used to have an office, locations in Costa Rica. So we have a whole team, because it's a software platform. And basically where this all started was around human judgment. So as you can imagine, from a mission standpoint, we're hiring, and we're not hiring with expecting people to have, degrees and previous
Right.
working skills. So we started with human judgment, which was everything from like scanning business cards to doing, like basic data enrichment for companies. And then it transitioned, and this is where I came in, transition to artificial intelligence. So we started working with companies like Microsoft to build, to provide the structured data that, like the Xbox is built on. Because, in the olden days of computer vision, you don't want to see like a chair and think it's a human. You need to be able to have like clear, like you need to be able to structure data for the AI to be able to recognize patterns, learn, and be effective. So that's what we've transitioned into, and we have a pretty interesting pathway, which is we became a profitable nonprofit, and then we knew we needed to basically build and invest more in the technology, because this work is not just a human in the loop, but it really needs technology because there's so much data that's out there. And we transitioned to for-profit. But in doing so, we immediately became a B Corp. So we became the first AI data company to be a certified benefit corporation. And on top of that, our nonprofit that we spun out of is our majority owner. So the idea was, okay, if we do well and this business is able to create value, then the greatest beneficiary of all is our nonprofit, that then has a mission to start other businesses that give work, that help create employment in underserved communities.
That's amazing. How's it working out?
It's been quite a ride. So yeah, we went through the venture funding route. We have built out engineering teams. We've got thousands of people working for us right now in East Africa, and it's been an incredible ride, but one that's pretty tough. Like, having a triple bottom line means that the way you make decisions, what you need to do to grow your business, everything needs to be aligned and integrated, but it may not be the logical thing to do. Like when inflation went high, and inflation and, like, for example, COVID really affects people at the bottom of the pyramid, right? You can't come to work. That income is something that your family is depending on. And inflation increases can make a huge difference for individuals. It's counterintuitive, but we've had to do, twice a year pay increases, which are counterintuitive to the bottom line, of the business, right? Where it's like, oh, okay, this is like, really a decision we need to make, but we have an objective, which is to pay a living wage, right? And so
Right.
even if we're sort of sitting outside of market, if you will, or above market for where we are paying, it's part of our social mission. Now, all of that lends itself to really strong retention rates. And so our resources stay with us longer. That means they're more qualified at the type of work that they do. It leads to a whole bunch of things that I think are really exciting about social ownership. It's very hard, but you have to find a way that those longer term investments really integrate to your business plan, and that you can create value. It just sometimes maybe, I don't say counter to like short term financial objectives, but that's where sometimes the rub comes in. But it leads for a very interesting workday.
You must have some really amazing stories of people that have come into the company that have been transformed.
Oh, incredible stories. Like, I was just in Nairobi, and I met this young woman who was selling secondhand clothes to make ends meet. She heard word of mouth about our company. She joined. She became an associate. She had enough money to go back to school. She brought her sister into the, she said, hey, why don't you go check it out? Her sister came in, went through the training, passed, joined. They, through their income, built their parents a home up country. So their retired parents now have a place to live. They're paying for the school fees of, their siblings and nieces and nephews. I met another young man who grew up in the slums, and he joined our company. He went back, he got his degree. So the income, and we also have a scholarship program and things like that, but the income and experience allowed him to go back to school. And now he is teaching STEM courses at his local high school in the slums.
Wow.
So there's just like, it's really amazing. And I think that's the whole goal, is to basically, create financial independence and build an ecosystem. So that's kind of our motto, which is give work, not aid.
Yeah, sometimes I always ask my guests what gets them up in the morning and gets them excited, and it's stories like that.
Oh yeah, that's
Motivating.
that's exactly right. It's like, okay, we're working on like the coolest technology in the world, like self-driving cars, surgical robots, like, virtual fitting rooms, all these things that are
Right.
very cool related to, artificial intelligence. And we're working to make the technology better, more effective, less bias free, to have a human in the loop supporting the validation of that those AI models are working. And we're changing one life at a time. So it's
Right.
like, all right, that's pretty cool. Like something I could get excited about.
Absolutely. So what is it that's unique about you that you bring to the table, do you think, that makes all this work?
Yeah, gosh. Well, aside from what kind of drew me here, so I guess I'll talk a little bit about sort of how this relates to me personally, and then sort of professionally. But yeah, from a personal standpoint, it was being the beneficiary as a kid, right? Growing up in Seattle, of the opportunity my dad had for work, right? Like, it created the opportunity for for my brothers and I to without him being able to do that, he worked many jobs to get his degree, and like, got here and allowed us the opportunity to have access to, good schools. We got to go to university, and we're all doing just great, now, right? So I think it was that sort of, value of recognizing how important that opportunity is. And a lot of people just don't get that opportunity. And if you have the ability to affect change, we owe that, right, to our community, to the world. So that was what personally was very inspiring for me, because it's about financial independence. It's not about telling people what to do or where to spend. It's about giving the tools, right, and the opportunity in a very purposeful fashion to create your own destiny, and to recognize that we live in a global economy. Now, on the professional side, I was delighted that I had a skill set that was actually really relevant to this, which is most of my career has been on digital and technical transformation, right? So how do you take disruptive technologies and help enterprises transform their businesses? So back in the olden days, it was like ERP systems, things like that. Like was what I first cut my teeth on. And then, it was around data analytics, and then it became big data, federated data systems, then it became, Internet of Things. And so this, progression of how do you leverage technology to transform the way you work has kind of been in my DNA. And for this kind of work, you need to not just be a pure software engineer and understand, everything about the technology, but our core basis, including our mission, is the human in the loop. That you need the human in the loop to help build this AI, to help validate it. And so having the combination of technology or software and services was actually a benefit in this case. Whereas usually people kind of go down one path or the other, but we truly are sort of a technology enabled solution or service. Can't do the work purely with humans. And we believe that the best pathway towards developing AI is not to ignore the human in the loop, like pretend it doesn't exist and that we're in the singularity and you can automate it out, but actually to embrace it and to optimize the human in the loop. Bring more value out of your data and more value out of the human in the loop, which I think, especially with generative AI and everything else, is actually critical to validate things are transparent and working as you expect.
It is. And I mean, I study human emotions in the neuroscience of emotions, amongst many other things. And that's one thing that AI will never be able to replicate. And all human decision making is emotional. There's no such thing as rationality at the neuroscientific level. So keeping the humans in the loop is really important, because otherwise AIs will never be, they can be great assistants, but they'll never create anything really new, because they've got to work on past data. So, and where do you get that spark of genius but through our emotional, intuitive processes that spontaneously occur in the human brain, which I don't think that will never get replicated.
I think that exactly where roles and jobs may change, I think there'll be more curation, there'll be more focus on creativity in those combinations. And I think that's why you see like everybody who talks about AI or companies who are deploying it are talking about it like it's a co-pilot. Well, I think that's because, there should be this, and I think we're going to see, we're seeing this through regulation, right? So there's the EU AI policy. The Biden administration just delivered an executive order like
last week,
Thursday or Wednesday. And I think it's around, not only do you have to have transparency in how the AI is being built, and particularly for sensitive areas like financial lending, right? We've all heard the stories of like the disastrous like Amazon recruiting engine that used inference to determine that women could not be software engineers because there just wasn't enough of a population, right? I mean, companies have gotten a lot smarter since then, right? Like there's much I think better, protections in place, but that point of like, hey, you're never going to think of every scenario. You need to have transparency in how you build this to understand where the data provenance, like where your data has come from, how it's being structured, knowing that it's been validated for sensitive things like financial lending, policing, surveillance, you name it. But then, beyond that, that there's sort of a certification or some sort of external body that's actually, checking on it, because some of these applications are so large and pervasive. Like, when has self-regulation really ever worked like for any industry? So at some point in time, I think there's going to be a lot of really interesting changes. And that's another thing that I like about this job, is that like I think that the whole goal is to create, like, I really believe in diversity. We're all like, part of our experiences. Grant, you have a law degree. We're all kind of part of. It's difficult to separate yourself completely from your work and how you contribute as leaders. So I like to surround myself with, one, people that are smarter than me. That's very important. But two, people with diverse backgrounds, whether it be gender, race, ethnicity, experience as well, because the more you do so, you're going to get different points of view. And I think AI is kind of the same way, right? If you've got the same type of people that are kind of in a garage, let's say like in Silicon Valley, thinking up what the world's most, pervasive technology will be, and there's not any diversity included in that supply chain, where do you think you're going to end up, right? Like,
Exactly correct. So you
yeah.
said a couple of things that perked my interest. One of the things you're doing with the young people that you're bringing into your business is you're teaching them professional skills like communication and conflict management, things like that. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's really
That was my
interesting.
daily week.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, like, if you think about like in the informal economy, whatever people might be doing, the skills to work in the formal economy are going to be, well, it's a different environment. You have to show up from 9 to 5, right? You've got to show up to work. You've got to be on time. You've got to check in. You have performance reviews. You need to be able to get coaching. Our companies are these really amazing, enterprises that are relying on us to deliver mission critical applications. So the expectation of both performance and coaching and results has got to be there too, right? It's not just like, hey, come in, we'll train you, and like, hey, there's this job that pays. It's like, actually, no, we want you to build skills, and at the end of the day, it is a business, right? We have to deliver something that's valuable.
Mhm.
And so part of that is of course the technical skills of like getting on the computer, and we have a chapter on mousing and like like how to manage a computer and like digital literacy skill sets. Of course, in much more advanced things like how do you interpret 3D LiDAR data, right, and infrared data and all these other things, unstructured data that we work with. But when you're talking about, hey, what is working well, what's not working well, what is the coaching, what is the performance? Oh gosh, I missed this deadline. Things like those all require communication skills, and we do these surveys for people because we track positive outcomes, right? Which is hey, if you leave, like if you leave to a higher paying job, like that's a good thing. That's like a win for us, right? It's in the win column. We do these surveys between what are the skills that kind of helped you get there, as well as we do some research. We have a impact M&E team that also does research that says in the areas we work within, if people go back into the local economy, what skill sets are required. And so we found in that intersection, professionalism, issue resolution, conflict management being a big component, like the number one soft skills. And then of course the technical skills of being really familiar with data and with the computer, because most, like something like over half of the people stay in ICT.
What's so interesting to me is I run into so many IT people who shy away from the professional skills, the interpersonal skills. It's like they're afraid of them. And I think it's great that you're putting in a training component that is rounding out your people so that not only do they have the hard technical skills, but they also have the personal skills so they can talk to each other. That's what this is all about, listening with leaders. So they can listen. They can have disagreements, but not and come and still work through their challenges in a civilized, respectful way. It's really powerful.
Exactly. It's a huge thing. And actually, if you take a look at like, well, we work in these regions, but they have like, kind of like what do employers care about most surveys, and we have a bunch of data there as well. And yeah, employers care that you can communicate.
That's right.
Effectively, courteously, professionally. It's very important part of what an employee does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see a lot of lip service given to it here in the United States, but very few companies actually spend the time to invest in the specific kind of training that's going to move the needle. So it sounds like you guys found some good training stuff that is effective.
Yeah, it is effective, and it is a unique situation too. So like we also do financial literacy courses.
There you go. Yeah.
99% of our people, like, it's the first time they've had a bank account. So
Right.
we have a bunch of stuff that kind of spans the gamut that may not like look like it's part of the traditional training path, but it is all part of this social mission, which includes like, hey, got like money in your pocket and vacation days and benefits. All right, like savings and plans, and sort of how do you think about this to basically transition from thinking about what each day looks like to really a career.
Right.
That's
And
kind of
having a horizon
epiphany.
out having a horizon out there far enough that you got to be thinking and planning it and thinking ahead.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, one more question, Wendy, and I'll let you go. What's one thing about yourself, other than that you're a skier and a snowboarder? I'm a level 3 certified ski instructor. You should come down
Oh,
skiing with me.
that's amazing.
What's one
Not
thing?
that good, but I love it.
Yeah, I did that for a long time. Had a lot of fun. I still ski. I ski when our local resort is China Peak, which is right in Central California. It's just to the west of Mammoth by about 50 miles on the west side of the Sierra. So it's about 40 miles from here. I go up and try to ski 2 days a week. So one of the reasons why I live here.
Oh man, good for you. See, I'm jealous.
I know you got to drive all the way to Tahoe.
That's part of my little known fact. Yeah. So before, working remote was like a thing, during COVID many years ago, when we were getting ready to, we had our first child and we we're like, okay, do we buy in San Francisco because we were living in the city? What do we do? We actually took this leap of faith with our 2-day-old baby and we moved to Lake Tahoe. So we moved to Truckee so that I could do kind of what you do on a regular basis. And so yeah, we used to put up like 35, 40 days a year skiing, which was like a season, which is amazing. And my old boss at that time is amazing. He'd be like, it's like Friday afternoon. He's like, it sounds windy. Are you on a chairlift? I'm like, yes, I am. You know what the routine is on Friday afternoons. Well, yeah, we ended up having 2 of our three kids there. So all little kids hanging out in a winter wonderland. So the idea of going back to that sounds amazing, but eventually with work it was just too difficult to to not be in the the heart of it all, right back in the valley. So we moved back. But that is one little known fact, that and probably aside from skiing, which is a huge family pastime, the next pastime is wine.
Oh, okay.
Hot. Yeah.
Drink a lot and good stuff.
And good stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, in my former days as trial lawyer, I represented growers and vintners, and it would be so fun.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I'd mediate a bunch of those cases too, and it's so fun to walk into a mediation and they've got these bottles with no labels, and they're doing a wine tasting, and the vintners always want to pay for the Volkswagen price, and the growers always say, no, you're paying the Cadillac price, and you got a Cadillac wine. The vintner says this wine sucks because your grapes suck.
That is a pretty difficult one to get around, right? It's like, how exactly, manage that?
Oh, it comes down to dollars and cents, and they work out a deal with my help, and and they're a little tipsy when they walk out.
That's amazing.
That's part of in my life as a mediator. That's part of what I do.
Love it. Love it.
Thanks so much for your time this afternoon, Wendy. It's been a real pleasure interviewing with you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Doug. Appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.